Today I'm going to share with you the 3 best values and the 3 worst values in fantasy football right now. And one of my favorite ways to do that is with the Rankings HQ tool at fantasylife.com. You have your roster settings. You can see all of our rankers down here. We're going to do consensus. I do want to change this up though, and I want to base this off of Yahoo ADP, and I want to make sure that we have just a little bit of a different draft. So I'm going to go to roster settings and I'm going to make this 3 wide receivers here and save the selection. And that's one of the cool things about this tool, is that the logic on the back end knows now that there's 3 receivers that we want and they are worth more. So they should move up, and they have moved up in our rankings right now. So we're going to start with the 3 best values that we have. And the way I'm going to do this is you're going to see right here that you can sort by the difference. And again, this is Yahoo ADP. So I'm going to sort by the difference based on our rankers, and I want to go to the best. So as you can see right here with our consensus rankings, you can see it compared to ADP, and then we have this set to all up here instead of flex, wide receiver, running back. So the first player I want to talk about here is Tetairoa McMillan. For most, when they think of Tetairoa McMillan, they'll say, okay, yes, he's a rookie, he has great draft capital, but I don't actually want to touch him because he's with the Carolina Panthers, and I do believe that that is fair. But let me just say this, Bryce Young did have a really strong end to the season last year. I don't think any of us are getting him confused with a top 15 quarterback. That's not where we have him in our rankings, but we do like to look for volume in fantasy football. And for Tetairoa McMillan, he is going to be peppered with targets because there's not a lot of receivers on that depth chart that we're necessarily scared of. So when we look at it, he could have the production that makes us want to go and target him. And that's what you could see here in our rankings, and why all of us are pretty close together in consensus. And then compared to the Yahoo ADP, there's a 38 difference right there. So for Tetairoa McMillan in our projections, we have him projected for 121 targets, 78 receptions, and 945 receiving yards with 5 touchdowns. So most players in this range are already going to have 1 red flag, maybe 2, but the upside with Tetairoa McMillan is something that we really want to look at here. So that's why not only myself right here that you can see in my rankings, I have him at 45, but all of us like him just a little bit more than Yahoo ADP. Next up, a guy that is not that far behind, you're going to see Caleb Williams, and he is right below Tetairoa McMillan, but you see the ADP difference right here. Consensus, we have him at 84. Yahoo ADP has him at 118.3, so that's a 34.3 difference here. And Caleb Williams is someone at Fantasy Life that we've talked about for a little while now, but it feels like he had an incredible offseason, right? Not only does he get Ben Johnson to come into town, but they also give him upgrades at the offensive line, and they go out into the draft and make sure he continues to get more weapons. So not only do you have Luther Burden over there now, but you also have Colston Loveland. So when we look at his rookie season, it wasn't amazing. We all kind of already know that for a number 1 overall pick. Finished as the QB 20, 15.4 points per game, and it wasn't good in a lot of the categories here. But again, when I look at Ben Johnson, I say, okay, what could he bring that we saw from the Lions? So that leaves room for him to grow as a passer. Again, with more weapons, you still have Rome Odunze there, you still have DJ Moore. And so this is the reason why I think a lot of our Fantasy Life rankers, as you can see over here, are pretty high on Caleb Williams. Especially look at Matthew Friedman over there. He absolutely loves him. So I will say it's the rushing that Caleb Williams brings that could also give him that leg up. When we look at some of his stats, 7% scramble rate was 25% above the NFL average. And then 81 attempts, Williams didn't score a rushing touchdown, which also makes him a positive regression candidate in that rushing touchdown department. So for me, looking at Caleb Williams, based on the projections that Dwayne McFarland has done, based on the potential that he has to become a better passer and see a little bit more touchdowns on the ground, I really do like him in this range. The next player that we are a little bit higher on than the Yahoo ADP is going to be DeAndre Swift. DeAndre Swift, we're looking right down here, and you can see with our rankers, we're pretty similar across the board. Comes in for our consensus at 62. Yahoo has him at 74.4, and that is a 12.4 difference. Really, this team did not add to the running back room like I thought they would. Do you remember there were rumors going around that they were going to try and trade up to get Ashton Genty, and they just did not do that. So you've got Roshan Johnson still there. You got Kyle Managi still there as well. They went and drafted him in the 2025 NFL draft. But for DeAndre Swift, like, he finished with a career best 1,345 yards last season. And this is one of those years where you again are reuniting him with Ben Johnson, who in 2022, when he was his play caller before, he averaged a career high 5.5 yards per opportunity. So I really like DeAndre Swift in this range. I think he's a little bit undervalued, as you can see over there in our fantasy life rankings as well. And he's just one of those guys where he's going to benefit with offensive line upgrades and with a hopefully better Caleb Williams in 2025. That is definitely someone you need to keep an eye on. Now with the Rankings HQ tool, we are going to see the 3 worst values based on our consensus rankings and the Yahoo ADP. So as we do that here, you're going to see in the corner, same thing we did last time, we're going to sort by the difference so we can see some of the worst values. All right, so now that I'm on the page that I want, again, sorted by the difference here, I want to scroll down and talk to you first about, unfortunately, Jared Goff. I'm sorry, Lions fans. We do not hate Jared Goff. We just do not like where he's going in drafts right now. So as you can see, consensus right here on Fantasy Life, consensus 108 going off the board, 78.8, which is a 29.2 difference there. So you can see that in these rankings. And here's the thing about Jared Goff. I do like taking him more in best ball formats because that is where you can just kind of, it's a set it and forget it thing. They take the most points. And for fantasy football purposes, when we look at him, unfortunately, it looks like he is going to be due for some passing touchdown regression. When we look at some of the stats, he posted a career high 6.9%, which was well above the 5% and 4.9% marks that he had in 2023 and 2022, according to Dwayne McFarland. And the other thing with Jared Goff is that he is not giving you the rushing upside that you want. So he is going to have to be perfect as a passer, and that's where some of us believe that he is being drafted at his ceiling. So for Jared Goff, again, he had a phenomenal season last year, 4,629 yards, 38 touchdowns, QB7 finish in fantasy points per game. But when we look at it, just 2% of Jared Goff's fantasy points came from rushing production last season. And so the other quarterbacks that were under 5%, Tua Tagovailoa, Aaron Rodgers, Matthew Stafford, Kirk Cousins, Joe Flacco. Not great company, but that's something we've always known with Jared Goff. He's not going to give you the rushing upside. But again, that's something where we look at here where we say, okay, he's going to have to be perfect through the air. They lost Ben Johnson, which I do think will hinder them just a little bit. And again, we don't hate Jared Goff. They're going to have a tough schedule. I believe they have the second hardest strength of schedule for 2025. We're just not as high on him over there. Now, on the same page here, just a little bit above Jared Goff is another player that we do not think has very good value when we're looking at him compared to Yahoo ADP, and that is going to be, unfortunately, new Houston Texans running back Nick Chubb. So again, as you can see throughout all our expert rankings, we actually have him as the consensus 162, and then that is compared to Yahoo ADP. He's going around 128.9, which is a 33.1 difference there. I want to say, Nick Chubb, I hope that if I'm wrong on any player for 2025, that it is you, because that means we get vintage Nick Chubb back. But unfortunately, we have to remember the injuries that have happened over the past couple of seasons, and he was able to return last year in week 7 going up against the Bengals, started 8 games before he unfortunately went down with a broken foot in week 15. So during that time, he had 102 carries, 332 yards, and 3 touchdowns. He also had 5 interceptions for 31 receiving yards and 1 touchdown through the air. But when we look at some of the stats through that, according to ESPN, he had career lows in yards per attempt at 3.3 and percentage of carries that gained at least 10 yards, which was at 4.9%. And I unfortunately am going to give you some of our fantasy life projections, and you're not going to love those as much either, because our projections have him sitting at 102 rush attempts, which is good for 442 yards and 3 touchdowns, which all comes out to 69.3 total fantasy points. So he's going to get a little bit of work in this Texans offense, and we can hope that this Texans offense performs a lot better than what we saw last season, especially with CJ Stroud. I am still more comfortable, obviously, taking Joe Mixon, but Nick Chubb is someone, based on our fantasy life rankings, that we just are not as high on as Yahoo ADP. And the last player that I want to mention here is, unfortunately, Cooper Kupp, new Seattle Seahawks wide receiver. So as you can see, when we're looking at Rankings HQ, when you scroll down, Cooper Kupp is sitting right here. He is our consensus 117 compared compared to a Yahoo ADP of 107.4, 9.6 difference, which isn't much, but still another player that I wanted to talk to you about. When I look at Cooper Kupp and how the Rams were very comfortable moving on, it's a little bit of a red flag in my mind. We know that the injury history is there, but when we also look at his open rating, it hasn't been very good the last couple of seasons. The open rating by year goes 2022, he was 56th, 2023, he was 72nd, and then in 2024, he was 107th. So again, injuries have played a part. You can look at the back half of last season and say, well, he worked as the overall wide receiver 4 in PPR points per game from weeks 8 to 14, and he did do that. But I am just not going out of my way, and a lot of our rankers are not going out of our way to draft Cooper Kupp going into this season. Again, we like JSN. This is hopefully a good new Clint Kubiak offense. I'm also a little bit worried about Sam Darnold and what he's going to look like under pressure. He was able to do a lot of great things with Kevin O'Connell and with a really, really great supporting cast last season, one of them being Justin Jefferson, and Jordan Addison did well too. So he's going to come into an offensive line that, yes, they went out and they got Gray Zabel, and hopefully that helps a little bit, but he is still going to be under a lot of pressure, and Sam Darnold does not do the best under pressure. But that does not mean that, JSN, Cooper Kupp couldn't work things out. But again, just a little bit of a difference over there when we're looking at Cooper Kupp in our rankings compared to the Yahoo ADP. And I just want to remind everyone, this is the Rankings HQ tool that you can find at fantasylife.com. We've got amazing things going on over there, so you want to go and check it out, because not only are we doing great things with our rankings, but you can look at draft strategy, you can look at scoring system, you can do league sync, and there are 2 subscriptions that you can look at. Fantasy Life Plus Tier 1 and Tier 2 subscriptions are available to you, so I can't recommend it enough. Make sure you go to fantasylife.com.